Welcome to the Pastor Study Hill Smooth 88.1 WHOV iHeartRadio right here, y'all, on Facebook Live. We almost all back together again. We still waiting on that one band member, who don't show up. But, we ain't gonna say nothing else. That's Delegate Price. She's still out here handling her business, taking care of the civic duties and her responsibilities. But we got everybody else in. Commonwealth Attorney, we know him as Pastor Law here on the show. He's also on Court TV, also moonlighting with us on Soul Street, but we ain't gonna say nothing about that. But we got Anton Bell that's with us in the building today. We got Bishop Ray Johnson, Dominion Outreach Worship Center. Appreciate you, bro. We got none other than Double Doctor, is what we call her on the show. D Squared, what we call her. Dr. Alvin Lyons, doctor, not one, but two doctors, and working on the fifth. And then we got Brother Jason Covington, our producer extraordinaire, who always holds it down, both on the show and outside of the show. We appreciate you, Jason, man. Thank you so much, sir. So we're going to go ahead and jump in today because we want to get right into this. And Alvin, I want to start with you. We ain't wasting no time.
Let's do it.
Matter of fact, put it in the chat right now. We want you to start putting some of your comments as we get to this show. So the last few weeks, we've been going back and forth on relationships and what men need and what women need. We took 2 weeks for the ladies. So we try to get the brothers to understand and listen to what y'all really need in a relationship. And last week we talked about the men. But what we want to do today is put it all together. And what we want to do is just narrow it down to the most important items, because I think that there's some perceptions and some things out there that's put out there on both sides that may or may not be true. So Alvin, we want to start with you. You got four dudes that's up here, right? What is, in your estimation for women, the most important thing that women need in a relationship? And before you answer that, I want you to drop it in the chat. I want y'all to put in the chat what y'all think it is. And I'm going to ask the men real quick first, Alvin, before you answer, to see if they are right. What's the one thing? Don't give me no explanation, fellas. Just give me the one thing you think is most important that women need in a relationship. Pastor Law, what is it?
I'll say affirmation and to be heard.
Affirmation and to be heard. Remember, drop y'all's in the chat. All right. Bishop, what is it? The number one thing that women need in a relationship?
I'm going to say agree with Pastor Law, but I'm going to change it and say to be understood.
Understood. All right. Jason, what do you say? Number one thing that women need in a relationship?
Jason, no, I'm just playing. Security and honesty.
We'll ask Michelle about that. Security and honesty, all right, is what he has, all right? And Alvin, I'm going to say that those answers are partly correct, but not entirely correct. I'm going to say the number one thing that I think women need in a relationship is emotional stability. All right. And then we can go into detail about that later. So you tell us, because we put ours out there, what is, and school us today, school the brothers today on what do you think is the number one thing that women need in a relationship? Now, I know you can't speak for all women.
I was going to say that. I'm like, because just like you guys are going to give answers that are going to be different from each other in some way, and speaking to what men need, because we're not a monolith. Everybody's got their specifics and their uniqueness. But I would have to say that in general, what women are often looking for is emotional support. They want to know that they have someone who really sees beyond their physical presence and into their emotional need, that it's not just this, because let's be honest, the physical stuff is going to fade. Like we could do our best to make it, as attractive as we can for as long as we possibly can, but physicality fades. But emotional investment in someone is the thing that can keep a relationship going forever, literally. And how that shows up speaks to some of the things that each of you guys said, right? Emotional support can show up through affirmation. Emotional support can show up through being heard. Emotional support can show up through, so there are ways in which that shows up. But the reality is, if we boiled it down to one thing, it really has to do with the emotions, the ability to really delve into, connect with, hear, see, understand the emotions of the woman that you are with. And for each woman, that how deep that sea is can be very unique. You know, there are some women who don't need a lot of that, but it's still their primary. And there are other women who need a ton of that because they live deeply inside of their emotions. But it's also one of the reasons why sometimes folks will look at women and look at the man they're with and be thinking, how in the world did that dude get that woman? And it's it's the way he is able to connect with her on an emotional level. I mean, literally, you're seeing it right now. And, you know, we try to talk about things that are relevant, even when we're talking about Hollywood and the like. But Pete Davidson with Kim Kardashian right now, folks are trying to figure out how that boy who, and, you know, he's attractive in his own way, you know, like, but how he got her. And when you ask people who know him, it's the way he listens to Kim. It's the way that he talks to her. It's the way that he pays attention to her. It's the way that he prioritizes her. She feels supported in that relationship. Now, Hollywood relationships don't last as long as ours do, but it's just to say that you're watching right there one of those examples where the how is this possible happens. You're talking about investments that have nothing to do with the physicality. You're talking about investments that are definitely connected to the emotion in some form or fashion. So I would absolutely say emotional investment is probably primary for the vast majority of women.
Now, Alvin, this is the challenge though, because most men are not raised in our emotions, right? So you take, for example, how men and women are raised. When a little girl falls down, right, and scrapes her knee, usually daddy or mommy will come to her rescue and scoop her up and hold her and really speak to the emotions of the moment for the young girl, right? But when a little boy falls down and scrapes his knee, the first thing that we say is, boy, you all right, ain't nothing wrong with you.
Get up, stop crying.
Fine, get up and stop crying. Yeah. Right? Get up and stop crying. You all right, go keep playing. What that inevitably does is it teaches boys not to own their feelings, right?
Right.
And so now you're telling us that the number one thing that women need is to be able to connect with you through our feelings, which is something that we're not taught to do. Right. So you're gonna have to help us today, Alvin. And you're gonna have to help the brothers that's listening, because this is what I also see in my office when I'm talking to a lot of couples who the young lady wants the man to be something that he hasn't seen, right? Yeah. He hasn't experienced. So if you're telling us most women need emotional stability or connection, and we're saying to you, we weren't raised that way. Mm-hmm. Where do we start? Mm-hmm. How can brothers, what does that look like? Paint the picture, because men are visual. So paint the picture for us of what emotional connection look like.
Well, first, let me do for every mother out there that is raising a son, do not raise a man that you wouldn't want to be married to. And it's amazing how often we will complain about the men that we have up here at our peer level, and we turn around, we raise exactly what it is that we would be complaining about years later. So to Kevin's point about, you know, if he falls and he scrapes his knee and you teach him to just stuff his feelings, do understand that the more you teach someone to stuff their feelings, they get better and better at doing that. And then some good woman, ideally one day, is going to ask him to access the thing he's been stuffing his whole life. So what we need to do as moms is to make sure that we teach our sons healthy ways to access those. Now, we also don't want to raise the kinds of boys that are crying in the middle of the street all the time either, okay? Because nobody wants those either, all right? But what we do have to do is to help them to be able to find language for what it is that they're feeling and to recognize the safe spaces in their lives where they can fully express the breadth of that emotion, right? Instead of pretending like there's no place where it's appropriate for a man to access all of his emotions, we have to teach him to find those safe spaces in his world and allow him the freedom to access those emotions in those spaces, because one day his woman should be that space. So I just wanted to say that there for all of the moms, and I don't care how old your son is, it's never too late to start to teach a man how to be able to access what he needs, and you be that safe space until he finds the woman who can be that. All right. So I want to start there. So in terms of what does that look like? It really begins for men in the recognition of the fact that you all have to be okay with being vulnerable. All right. And vulnerable in the sense that you don't have to have the right answer, because the natural inclination of most men is to fix it. Right. And sometimes, and quite frankly, a lot of times, when women are sharing their feelings, they're not looking for you to fix it right in that moment. A lot of times women are looking to just share because they need to release it. They need to process it out loud. And it doesn't mean you have a thing to do list instantly. It's not a honey-do list. It's a honey hear list. Okay. I want you to hear me in terms of what it is that I'm saying. Now, if there needs to be corresponding action, what you're doing as a man, after you've heard her, you've sat with her, you've shortcut the desire to go to fix it, to make it go away, make the pain go away, make the complaint go away, make the discomfort go away. You've got to interfere with the motivation to go straight there, because you want to hurry up and get to the fix action. Let her finish all of that, right? And then when she's done, ask, is there something you need me to do? Because sometimes there's nothing she needs you to do. She actually just wanted to complain about everything that was going on. She needed to get it out. And now she's gotten it out. She's gotten it out with the person she loves most, and she will figure out for herself what she wants to do with it. But it's not for you to fix it unless she needs you to fix it. So sometimes the safest thing to do is to ask the question as to whether or not there needs to be an action. Now, I will say to you, in our generation, we are better at being able to navigate that. For those who are in younger generations, I hear very often from women, I need a man who knows what to do without me having to say it. And let me tell you something, that's nonsense, because we would be real upset if we are having problems with our man and he's expecting things of us that he has never communicated to us, and he's holding us responsible for what he never communicated to us, and we're getting into arguments and fights over things he never communicated to us. We would see that as unbelievably unjust. So I want to be crystal clear about the fact that don't do that in the reverse, that you expect him to read your mind, to know how to serve, protect, be there by your side to support you, when you've not communicated what that is. And that's why personal development is important, because baby, if you don't know what you need, how's he supposed to know what you need? So it is very, very important that we own our responsibility inside of relationships, and we don't do things like saying, well, you know, if he was a real man, he'd know to do blah, 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 blah. If he was a such and such, he'd know to, or the reverse. If she was a good woman, she'd know I need blah, blah, blah. We've got to be able to communicate what our expectations are. And Kevin used to talk about that all the time, that one of the things that causes the most problems in relationships are unmet expectations, that we have not talked about the things that we're expecting from each other, but yet we are holding the other person accountable for the thing we haven't talked about. So I would say that it begins first with vulnerability, the willingness to just listen without an agenda to fix, and then the proactivity around saying, do you need me to do anything? What do you need me to do after you have fully and completely listened to what's being said? That is the framework for what emotional support begins to look like.
Yeah, we're putting it all together today, having some real talk on both sides. What's the most important? And we know everybody's different, but when we're talking in general terms, what's the most important thing that a woman needs in a relationship? And what's the most important thing a man needs in a relationship? We hear all kinds of things in the streets, but we're giving you the truth today. So drop it in the Facebook chat, the pastor's study. And so I got another question for you, Alvin, but before I go to it, I want to let the fellas just to kind of chime in here. What are y'all hearing so far, fellas, about what Alvin is saying about this whole emotional connection piece, that being most important? Pastor Law, let me start with you.
The first thing I heard is creating a safe space to be able to share your vulnerabilities and being able to be transparent. And that is, for men, that is absolutely a challenge because we're not raised that way. And so when you're trying to well, first of all, when you got to first of all realize that that's an issue and that's a challenge, and be able to say, okay, I'm going to address that, and I'm going to be proactive in learning how to do that. One of the things that I started doing is journaling, because I didn't realize how therapeutic journaling was.
Really
But
is.
it's extremely therapeutic when you can write down your feelings and your emotions and your thoughts and be able to see it on paper, because now it's out in the atmosphere as far as what are the things Jay, I'm telling you, that thing is it's like going to a therapist almost.
Man,
It's
listen.
like you are really able to see where you are emotionally, especially if you're not the type of person that normally analyze your own emotions or analyze your own feelings. And so being able to create a safe space for the two of you to be able to share where you are and to be able to affirm one another emotionally in that space. So those are the key points I took from her.
Yeah, that's good, Ty. That journaling is so important. Bishop, what about you, sir? What did you take away from Alvin schooling us so far on what women really need?
She really, really took us to school. I mean, somebody ought to got a bachelor's degree out of that experience. And a lot of young dudes could really, really learn, but even some of us more seasoned men could really learn from that too. What I took from that is the opportunity to really understand what true intimacy is all about. Because the more you take time to become emotionally vulnerable with the woman that's in your life, that creates a connection to the point where she starts to say internally within herself, he gets me. And that point, he cares. And so, and if you want some things to take on a little bit later, I know we're going to discuss this a little bit later on as men in the show today. But if you want to have some stuff happening later on that night, make sure you make some connections earlier throughout the day in terms of communicating with her. I do this a lot, with Tish because of her professionalism. She's the chief on her job. So she's managing multiple millions of dollars daily. She's got to report to the CFO and then report to, the CEO of the organization, and a lot rests on her. But she really, without telling all of her business, she can have some irate moments. And in her irate moments, she's a numbers person. So she dots I's, crosses T's all day. And it bothers her when 2 + 2, you say 2 + 2 = 6, and she knows it equals 4, she's going to hit the roof. And so sometimes I just check in with her throughout the day and say, baby, I need you to breathe. I need you to calm down. Everybody doesn't see it the way that you see it. And, when I have those kind of moments with her, she goes, he gets me, he understands. And then sometimes, Alvin, you'll get a kick out of this because she's a numbers person much more than I am. When I try to fix it, the point of listening to hear what they have to say, give them the chance to fix it. They know what it is that they want done and what they see to happen. When I try to fix it, she hits me with the, really? I ain't asked for your help on this. I just need you to just sit here and just listen to me for a minute. And so to the degree that you get that faster and quicker in your relationship, intimacy develops in the middle of that.
Yeah, that's good. Jay, how about you, man? What did Alvin school you on so far, man?
I wish Alvin could talk to me when I was like 20, 21. But what she said that stuck out, it parallels what Michelle says to me all the time. I need to talk to you, not for you to fix it. I just want you to hear me. You're the safe space that I feel that I can be vulnerable in. But oftentimes, I'm trying to fix it. It wasn't until I sat and really heard her, as you hear Langston in the background, God bless you. Hold on, son. Just let me talk. Let me be vulnerable with you. And if I need you to fix it, at the end of it, I say, hey, this is what I need. So what I learned now is when she's talking to me, I'm genuinely listening. And when she gets done, I say, hey, did you want me just to listen to this conversation? Or do you want me to do something about it? And that's helped me and helped her. And later on that evening, it's always a blessed time of community because you invest in the fellowship services and the multiple services during the day, so that during the prayer service and the feet washing service, you can fully embrace what God has for you.
Yeah, you like the foot washing services too. I know you do, boy. So Jay, look, Alvin, I want to say though, I got a thought here. Can the sisters tell the brothers up front instead of you say it at the end after you said everything? I don't want you to fix it. Could you help us out by saying it at the beginning, right? Because you're gonna have our minds spinning from the beginning when you start talking, right? And if you just tell us from the beginning, look, I don't need you to fix nothing, but I just need you to hear me, then I can turn my mind off, right? And so that would be one request for the brothers. All right, I think I can speak for the brothers on that.
I think that's fair.
Is that fair? Okay.
I think that's fair.
But then another question is about providing, Alvy, and I'm coming back to you, right? Because so much of what we think you is most important to you all is providing for you, right? And so that's attached to money. That's attached to lifestyle. That's attached to living a certain way. And you're now telling us that ain't number one. But there are a lot of guys that might be listening to the show right now thinking that that is number one, right? And so that's why so much emphasis is put maybe on a guy to feel like he has to fix or provide in order to be what you want. So help the brother that's listening about what you're saying. And no, it's not providing is not number one, but where does providing fit into that emotional space that you're talking about?
So that's such a great question, because what it brings to the forefront is the broad array of women, the spectrum of a woman. And what I mean by that is that for a woman who cannot pay her bills, cannot feed her kids, cannot feed herself, providing could be number one for that woman, okay? Because she is in survival mode. She's not at thriving mode yet. Do you understand what I'm saying? So there are some women that, depending upon where you meet them in their lives, depending upon where they are in their own journeys, they are just trying to make it. And if you're just trying to make it, then your emotions are a luxury compared to being able to eat, being able to have a roof over your head, being able to, so that can change the dynamic. That's why we want to be clear about the fact that our statements are not absolute to 100% of men or women, because the uniqueness of somebody's situation can make one thing that would have been level 3, level 1, because they're in a situation, right? But for the average person, assuming, and for those of you who know anything about psychology, there's a concept known as Maslow's hierarchy of need, right? And at the bottom of this triangle, and you can look it up online, just Google it, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the bottom of the triangle is food, shelter, very basic kinds of things. Those are our survival needs. But at the top of the triangle is self-actualization, the really being able to discover who you are, what you need, the realization of where you fit inside of the world, all of these higher level thinking. But when someone doesn't have their basic needs met, very often they're not thinking about the luxury of the self-actualization, okay? So and this is not true for 100% of people, but they have found that to be true in the vast majority of humans in their development. So yes, it's true that not every woman is looking for a provider, but we're also having a conversation with the assumption that we're talking about women who are in stable places in their lives, right? So the stability of their lives allow them to think about themselves more broadly than just survival. So, and quite frankly, the more successful woman you are talking about, the more she's looking for a man who can bring something else to the table besides his money. Now, that doesn't mean that we want a man who has nothing to offer. So I don't want to promote that nonsense either, okay? Like, we're not trying to raise a 4th child, okay? Like, that's not the goal. The goal is not that your car payment is now my car payment, and I might as well be putting you to school like you're my college student. That's not what we're saying either. We're just saying that I don't need your money in order to function. And as a result, the greater need is what you bring to the table in my emotional evolution, who I am and the layers and the depth of who I am. We're looking for more of that. So it's not that money doesn't matter, because it does. but it just doesn't matter at the same level when you start talking about a woman who is not dependent on a man in order to survive or to function. Those priorities start to change based on where we are in our own personal evolutions.
Yeah, that's good. And so, fellas, we all got sons that we're trying to raise here. And again, for most of us, we try to raise them, you know, as Alvin said, so when they see a young lady come into their life, they'll be prepared to love them the right way. Have we heard anything today that may change, or maybe we say, you know what, I need to make sure I talk about this with my son based on what Alvin is saying, right? Has anything struck a nerve with you today in terms of, because I know, Tom, you're passionate about raising boys. You said that very often in terms of that's some of the challenges that we see in our society, what you see in your courtroom every day, that boys are being raised properly. Anything today that maybe we should remind parents to do now that maybe they're not doing?
Well, first of all, I'm glad Alvin did hit on the point about provider, because, you know, you are going to be ultimately the breadwinner, and unless you switch the roles, but typically, or I should say historically, you would be breadwinner. And so being able to provide, but not just being able to provide physically and financially, but being able to provide emotionally. I think that's probably the bigger piece, because we do teach them the ABCs of financial prosperity and how to climb that corporate ladder and how to be able to take care of your family. But one of the things that we don't put the greater emphasis on is how to be emotional and being able to be an emotional provider as well, an emotional outlet, so to speak, so that as Alvin said, when they do come to you and they don't want you to fix it, they just want you to hear it, then you are that emotional outlet. You are able to hear it, and you're able to just be still and listen. So that's very important.
Yeah, Tom, that's great. And Ray, I'm coming to you from the church perspective, because men just aren't taught this, right? And this even goes back not to parenting with the bump and the bruise, but this even goes back to how women and men tend to process their emotions, right? So she's asking for vulnerability, right? And when sisters got some dark days, here's what they're gonna do. They're gonna call up some other sisters, right? They're gonna come over to the house, they're gonna get a bottle of wine, and they're gonna just have a good time, and they're gonna talk about their stuff, and everybody gonna hug and cry together. Brothers don't do that, man. Right? So brothers be out here on the island trying to figure out by themselves, right, how we gonna solve some of the stuff we dealing with, all the pressures, because we don't feel like we can talk to another brother.
Come on, that's real.
Right? So if they want emotions from us, and that's not how we operate, but that's how they operate, can the church do anything to change this narrative, man?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the onus rests on us, particularly for those of us who are like you and I in urban sectors, where we take time to actually work with men and talk with men. Men learn more by what they see, so do boys, than what someone says. So think about, you and I just celebrated, well, my anniversary stuff is coming up, next week. But you and I, we've been in the game, 15, 16 years in terms of the senior pastorate, over 25 years pastoring. When you or I, we go to the front of the service. I love what you do in your church. You go right in the middle of the service. Kevin will walk right up, hands straight up, head down. He'll get down on his knees. He gonna worship all the way. He don't care who looking. He don't care who around. At that moment, it's him and God. That shows a level of vulnerability. That shows a sense of intimacy between him and the Lord, and it shows that he's very serious. When other men are able to see other men express themselves. Now, I don't buy the notion, having worked with men for a while as teenagers, and then pastoring in terms of my adult years. I don't buy the notion, Alvin, the idea that we're not emotional, or that we don't communicate.
That is nonsense.
Men are very emotional. It's about what we are emotional about, and it's about what we're communicating about.
And so how we express it.
And how we express it. So instead of us getting all of our intel from the barbershop, you know, that's like our country club. Why not a men's Monday or Tuesday or whatever to get, whatever your ministry has, Pastor, listen to me. Call the brothers together. Don't let the ladies come. And to the degree that if you're going to stream it, have it in a closed session so that it's on a group page, and you got to be male in order to get in there, and you will hear brothers talk and discuss some stuff. And here's the key, without judgment, no matter how off the wall it sounds. When I've done those moments and I let the brothers just go, oh, sometimes it get heated. And sometimes some other, it's kind of like me and you, Tom, when we off air, when we just going at it, brothers will shoot straight from him, be like, I don't know why you thought that was gonna work. Who told you that? So it's not that men are not emotional. We are. It's about what we're emotional about and how we discuss it. The church has got to cultivate that. And we've got to really, really draw in close. I'm passionate about this one, y'all. Really, really kind of redefine what masculinity and spirituality looks like. Because if we don't, we're going to keep losing brothers to the 5%ers and the Hebrew Israelites and the Jaws and all of that. We're going to keep losing, but we've got to really redefine that so that, you know, you don't seem like you're some guy that's soft because you got your hands up, or because you speak in tongues, or because you're in the worship service, or you cry before the Lord. Men are very passionate. It's about what we're passionate about.
100%. And Jay, you the youngest of the bunch, man. You know, what's the young brothers, man? I mean, I know in our generation, ain't no brother calling another brother in my generation. Like, man, can you come over here, man, and talk about my, that's just, it ain't nothing wrong with that. We just ain't been raised that way. That just ain't how it go. Like, I'm gonna call my boys up, man. We're gonna come over here and watch the game. We're gonna talk about our marriage. It just don't work that way, man. So what is it like for y'all young bucks, man? Are y'all on the island like some of the older folk, man, trying to figure it out?
It depends on your set of friends. The set of friends that I have, we have code words, we have secret text message threads that we have with one another. So when we going through something, I can't give you what the code word is, but we'll send that via text. And if my wife picked up my phone, she would think, oh, they just shooting the breeze. But that's letting my brother know, hey, we need to go somewhere and we need to talk because I'm about to shoot somebody. In the words of Anton, Pastor Law, I'm about to go shank somebody. Or I'm struggling. See, you're talking to the wrong young person, because I'm about 38, been married before, second marriage. So my viewpoint and my values are drastically different than the average 35 to 40-year-old man. A lot of them don't want to talk about things unless they get that space where Ray is talking about. I did a marriage retreat in Maryland with one of my bros, and when he's around his wife, he don't really talk that much. When we went to that closed session, there was about 15 guys sitting in that church. This dude opened up, and I was sitting there like, who is this joker? He got back to the house, and his wife was like, what y'all talking about? What y'all talking about? He was like, oh, no, we just chilled and shot the breeze, talked about sports. But in that moment when we were together, we talked about everything. We talked about different relationship issues that we all had, sexual issues. Because here's the thing, a lot of men don't even want to talk about those sexual things that's going on that's weird, because if they say it, they scared it could be clowned, it could be called soft, or it could be called, you know, other negative connotations of you know what the world says. But what Ray said is so key and so imperative. When we create that safe space, men emote. Men, I saw some men crying. I saw some men go back home better than where they left, but it was only because of that safe space. But then when you have that same space where it's shared with our wives, we ain't talking. Hey, how do you feel about so-and-so? Oh, it's cool. Because here's the thing.
I'm good.
You don't want to talk about.
I want to hear it. I want to hear it when I get home.
Right. It positions yourself in a weak lens, or you say the wrong thing and then your wife pissed off and you like, oh,
she ain't never letting that go.
So
you embarrassed us. You made us look bad. Oh Lord.
but as a man, I need like Kevin, Ray, and Pastor Law. When I need something, I talk to them. Boom. And Albion is like we say often, she is so closer to a man than a lot of the men that I know. That some of the reasons why I haven't screwed up as much is because we had conversation. And don't get it twisted. She is a woman, 100%. But like you have a conversation, you like, hey, am I talking to one of the bros or just? But then conversely, and I'll land the plane here, as Pastor Ray says often. For me, because of my lifestyle and what I've been through. Now let's be clear about something. We have 4 men on the show, 100%. We straight in 6 o'clock. But I think out of the men we have on the show, I may be one of the more emotional men that's a part of this show. Because a lot of things move me, and before you know it, I'm crying, and you like, what's wrong with him? But don't get it twisted. That's because you see a tear come out this thug's eye. I still break your neck and still be crying. So don't
you lift weights, Jake. You lift weights.
Don't mess up. But I find a lot of females and males will come and talk to me about what they're going through. And I'm like, I don't know you. Why are you talking to me? But it's because I get it from my mama, and I get it from my daddy. Because my daddy, when I remember falling through a plate glass window, my dad, first thing he did, grabbed me up and cover that wound and make sure I was good. Conversely, when my son was running, he fell and hit his head, and all this swelled up. I was in the church service. I got a phone call. Immediately, I got up from my post and went back to where my son was. And when I got him, I'm trying not to cry now, but it moved me because I saw him in pain. When he get his shots, I cry more than he does because I see him in pain. I can't do nothing about it. So I try to make sure that I mirror, not to be soft, not to be a pushover, but dude, it's okay to cry. It's okay to say I'm hurt, because this is a safe place. Because what I don't want you to do is go out here and be a baby jerk or an adult jerk. Now we gotta go see Pastor Anton or who will be here once he leaves, because I'm not situated to put my hand on the glass and talk to my son. So right. I want to make sure he feels safe and secure now to express himself as a boy. And same thing with my daughter. I do her the same way, but I treat her a little bit differently because I want her to understand, don't be naive to these jokers that were, hey, baby, it's all good. Don't worry about that. The first thing that when a guy did something for her, she said, oh, my daddy did that. Like when the guy said, you know, I can give you $20. My daddy took me on a vacation out of the state. Or as she get older, I'm going to give her her first diamond ring. So when she meets her dude, hey baby, I can give you this. Oh, my daddy gave me that already. I want to be that example. So she's not looking for a man, and it's even more complex because of some other issues. But I want to make sure that she knows that this is what manhood is about. You can be straight by yourself. That's another thing that Michelle doesn't need me as a husband. She wants me as a husband. And it took me a few months to learn that. And Kevin helped me with that when we went through marital counseling. And this is definitely the last thing I landed. Being very, very transparent and talking about everything. When we went premarital counseling, Kevin was like, look, have y'all talked about who's gonna take trash out? I'm like, me. And Michelle was like, nah, it's gonna be me. I'm like, wait. So it was those things that because she was used to be doing things on her own. She don't need no man to take her trash out or cut her grass. She did it by herself. She need a man to wash her car and do this, that, and the third. She did it herself. So she doesn't need me to be that man, but she wants me to be her man and fit into that context. So all those things, man. But these young jokers, they watch these videos and see monies and all this other kind of stuff. And this is what manhood is about. Let me tell you, you hear in the background, my son could be with his grandmother, hanging out with his grandmother. But I think when I'm off, my son is with me. When it's time to do stuff, my son rock with me. I don't pawn him out to other people. So we gotta have those conversations and explain, this is what manhood is about. This is what womanhood is about. This is what relationship is about. And this is what not just the Black family, but the family should be surrounded with.
And can I just say something real quick, Kevin, just to, to speak to each of the points that have just been made. Part of the problem in our society is that we promote toxic masculinity, and that's this orientation that men are supposed to be supermen, and they're not allowed to be vulnerable, and they're supposed to, and everything's about being hard and tough and never needing anybody. You could do it on your own, this, that, and the other. I mean, we worship these storylines where, oh, he made it to the top all by himself. Nobody makes it to the top all by themselves. All right. So like, why are we even playing make believe about that? Overnight successes, that didn't happen overnight. That root was growing down for years before it came through the soil. We love to be able to promote these things in our society. And as a result, one of the things that you see in psychology very often is the misdiagnosis of men's situations. And what I mean by that is that our society has not taught men that it's safe to be sad. So very often we will misdiagnose depression with anger issues because it is safer and more socially acceptable for men to be angry, because that looks like strength, than for them to cry, when the truth is you've got a lot of depressed men who are acting out physically in violent or angry ways. But if it was safer for them to just acknowledge their pain, and it was okay for them to be vulnerable, we would see less of the violence. So a lot of the violence we see in the hood and everywhere else, because of socioeconomic need, it's not safe for me to say that I am fearful that I won't have enough. I am fearful for my tomorrow. I'm fearful for my inability to provide for the people in my life. I'm fearful for my own life. Instead, I want to show strength, and I opt to reach for anger. I opt to reach for violence, and it's all just trauma inside out. So just understand that even the things we're seeing at a broader level nationally in the diagnosis of men and their issues, what we see, as Anton knows so well, what we see in the court systems are often a byproduct of the fact that men do not have safe spaces to be able to express their traumas. And as a result, they find unhealthy ways to be able to cope with those things instead. So, I just appreciate what it is that you guys are saying, because the science backs it up.
100%. And if you're just tuning in, we're having a conversation about relationships. What do men and women really want at the top of the list? We know there might be lots of things, but what's at the top of the list? And so we asked Alvian to school us brothers to start the show. And she said that the number one thing that women need, typically, not in all cases, but typically, is emotional connection. Mm-hmm. We said brothers ain't never been taught that. We don't know what that looks like. You're going to have to help us with that. And so what I heard today, Alvin, is that brothers, we got to start normalizing having safe spaces to share. We got to normalize being in touch with our feelings. And we have to normalize how we process those feelings in a healthy way.
Yes.
And then sometimes that we get so caught up in the providing role that we forget that really what our wives and our boos need from us is just to be for them to be emotionally connected with us. And I'll give you one example of this. If you ever understand at the end of the day, when you come home from work or the long day, and you ask your wife or your boo how their day goes, typically they're going to start at the beginning of the day, right? When they woke up, right? And they're going to walk you all the way through their day. Right. And usually their answer is going to be probably about, a good number of minutes, right, to answer that question.
30.
Right. And then when she finishes, she'll ask the guy, how was your day? And we'll answer it in one word. It was fine.
Fine.
Died. Nothing but major happened. And she's waiting and I had to learn this. She's waiting for us to tell more. Yeah. Why is she waiting for us to tell more? Because that's how she connects with us, right? As we share more of ourselves, but we haven't been taught that, right? So that's just one example of how there's a disconnect. But now let me flip it on the other side, Al, because now you got 4 dudes up here, and now maybe
I was going to ask the question.
It's our chairs now.
So I get to turn the tables where you guys are concerned.
Yes,
Most women believe that the thing men are most interested in relationships and hold relationships together is sexuality. That it's normally about the physicality, the sex, the how hot is it, how frequent is it, how wild is it, you know, am I keeping it spicy enough? Do I need to spice it up? You know, I've gained a little weight as I've gotten older, or I had a baby and my body's changing. Is that going to be a problem in the relationship? We often think that it's the physical that you guys need the most. So I want to see what it is that you guys honestly say about it. And I also want you to acknowledge, if it's appropriate, is there a difference between what you needed and wanted in a relationship in your 20s versus what you need and want in your relationship now in your 40s and your 50s? Is that different? And Jason, in your case, in your 30s, is there a difference between what that looks like? Because men don't stay the same from when they're younger to when they're older. So I'm going to jump first to Ray. Ray, what do you think is the number one thing men are looking for? And if that thing is different, depending upon their age, will you acknowledge what that difference is when you're younger versus at your age now?
Hold on, Ray, before you answer, Al, what do you think it is?
What do I think the number one thing men need?
Yes.
I would say one of the greatest things men need is the affirmation of their woman, as in a woman who absolutely sees them not for what they are today, but what they're capable of being, and she believes in him. That like that kind of support and affirmation is the thing that men are often most attracted to, if you were to ask me. But go ahead.
All right, Ray.
Yeah, so I will concur with that. I'm gonna say all these brothers are gonna say the same word, and I'm gonna use the word respect. And I'm gonna be Birdman and say, put some respect on my name. The brothers need respect. So when you're a young man, that affirmation part becomes very, very, very important, because you aren't proven yet. When you're 20, you're on your way, you're getting started. You haven't had, you know, enough lions and bears you've already taken out. When you get to where we are at 50, the affirmation becomes less important in this sense that we know who we are. Mm-hmm. So now it's, you know, respecting the ideas and really the patterns of how we're trying to lead the family for the purposes of legacy with our children. And that comes into that respect part that's really, really important. It's one thing, Al, if you got a guy that he really don't know what he's talking about. And men know how to put on some bravado, and we know how to sound like we know what the heck we're talking about, when really we don't, especially of those who have had some block experience. But when you got a man that knows what he's talking about, that respect thing is really, really important. And when we get to this age, we ain't trying to argue with you every 5 minutes over every little thing. At this point, either we go in this direction or we not, which is why vision is so important when it comes to family dynamic and also in organizations. I'll stop by leaving it alone like that.
I know that's right. Okay. All right. So, Ton, what would you say?
You know what? For the first time, I think I may have to 100% agree with Ray.
Somebody write it down.
Somebody write it down in the history books, because Ray, I think you have knocked it out the block. It is absolutely without 100% respect. It is absolutely respect. As Ray said, put some respect on my name, but it's not just put some respect on my name. It's more so, do you respect me for who I am?
Yeah.
And because so many times we wear titles and positions, and you know, all of us are doing different things, and you always going to have your groupies and your fans out in the public or the church or wherever it may be. But do you see me?
Right.
And do you respect me to my inner core? Do you respect the man that you believe I am? And that is huge for us. Do you respect the man that you believe I am?
I know
when no one else is there, when there's no fans there, when it's just you and I, do you respect the man who you believe I am?
Okay, now that thing was poetic. All right. Jason, what would you say?
I think right now we almost going 3 for 3. Just
Ray?
tagging on to what Ray said, I would just add the caveat in my 20s, late 1820s ish. That respect and affirmation was more so from a sexual standpoint to say if I'm pleasing, this, that, and the third. But as I got older, like we need to figure something else outside the bedroom. Like it's cool when we laying down, but when we get up, if we go somewhere, we go to a gala, you gotta have clothes on. You can't be humping in the gala. So we need to have something that we can talk about outside of this gala. But where I am now, when I look at Michelle and I see my reflection of myself in her eyes, I see a superhero. I see the man, like you said, that I'm not all where I need to be, but she gives me room to grow to where I need to go.
Yes.
And like she honors me. Like I never had to question who wears the pants, but she always gives me the encouragement, energy, know that I may wear the pants, but we work together. So all those things work hands in hand. But in the 20s, it was sex. As I got older, it was like, hey, what's gonna happen after this sex is over? Because
do I like you vertically as much as I liked you horizontally?
Because here's the thing, you can get the horizontal loving from anybody.
Yeah, but that vertical love is different.
That vertical love, that's a song. I'm gonna write that. I'm gonna sing that in church on Sunday.
Amen. Kevin, what would you say?
Yeah, I 100% agree with the brothers. It's respect, and it's because respect is the currency of men. This is how men communicate, right? So in many cases, we find ourselves not as co-laborers, but in some cases as competitors, right? So if you notice, in most environments where men get together, is usually we're competing against each other. It's video games. It's bad. It's something where is one pitting us against each other, right? So it's not always the money from men. It's the respect that the money brings.
Right.
It's not the job that we have. It's the respect that the job brings.
Yes.
It's not the car. It's the respect that I think I can get from having the car. That's really what I'm looking for, right? And so that's everything to a man. Now, Alvin, I'll say this to you as well, and maybe women don't realize this, and I say this in counseling. If you want to see your man the angriest he's ever been, it is at the exact same time that he's felt like he's been disrespected.
Yes, for sure.
A man will go from 0 to 10, seeing red, ready to go see Ton on his day job when he feels like he's been disrespected.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but let me say, sometimes sisters, like, you do stuff and you do things that are disrespectful, and you just like, you can't, like, brothers don't like their business being put out there.
No.
No, please don't put your man's stuff out there.
On social media, keep it to yourself, baby. Work it out at home.
Right. Please, if you amongst your sisters and your girlfriends, y'all talking, please don't put all of it out there. Right? Because after you disrespect me like that, the next thing that's going to happen is I'm going to shut down. Right? And because now, if I can't trust you with my feelings, then I don't know if I can talk to you. And if I can't talk to you, then you ain't going to feel emotionally connected to me. Right?
And then the next thing that happens is somebody's having an affair.
Exactly right. And I'm going to come, and I'll come home every day and I'll ask you about your day and see how you doing. But after we finish dinner, I'm going to watch the game and I ain't got to see you no more to the next. See, this is because when there is a disrespect factor, if I don't feel like I can trust you, because men, we don't share our hearts often, right? So I got to feel like I can trust you with this. All that factors in. And so sex is important. And by the way, Jason said sex, because it's true, most men, what we don't realize scientifically is most men peak in their 20s sexually, right?
Go there.
So yeah, you hot and heavy in your 20s because you in your peak season, right?
But let's be clear, you're not your most skilled self in your 20s. So let's be clear. Okay.
just
You might be
just
doing it often, but that doesn't mean it's quality.
doing your hunting season the most, right? And it still may be at a very high part of your list, right? But when you get older, to what Jason said, look here, I got 2 kids about to go in college, right? I'm gonna need you to help me with that. You understand what I'm saying? So we can talk about all the other stuff, but it is respect. It's number one, respect, and I think sisters think it's sex, and for the most part, for a real man, let me say, it ain't respect. And Ty, you didn't even mention the reason why brothers getting shot and killed in the streets is over respect.
It's no respect.
That's all it is.
You looked at me wrong.
That's all it is.
My shoes. You said the wrong thing.
You put me out there on social media. Now I got to come back at you.
Media. Come on.
Well, let me say one quick thing, because I know that we're coming close to the end, because I want to be clear about something for our listening audience, that even though we're talking about the priority thing, we are not suggesting it's the only thing in any form or fashion, right? And so when people ask me, like, well, what do you really think women need? And I always say that there are 3 things: passion, protection, and provision. A woman wants to know that when you are passionate about her, like nobody else is going to do, she wants to be craved, not just desired. Because when you got a craving for something, you can eat something else and you'll still go find that thing that you actually had a craving for. When you have a craving for your woman, nothing else they could try to be substitutes, but they'll never be able to replace your woman. And that's why you have a taste for just her. So that's what we mean when we say passion. When we're talking about provision, we're talking about providing for us more than just financially. You're able to provide for us emotionally as well. And we talk about protection. It's not just our physical souls. It's not our physical bodies. It's that, can you protect me, mind, body, and spirit? Are you there for me? Are you watching over those things? And then when we flip it and we're talking about men, I always say, to your point, Kevin, that it's always competition and men want to win. So to remember what that is, I always call it the race, RACE. And number 1 is respect. So making sure that you understand that his love language is respect. That even though our love language, we start at the heart and go to the head, they start at the head and go to the heart. If I feel respected, I can feel love for you in a different kind of way. Number 2 is appreciation. I can't tell you how many men tell me that they feel unappreciated in their households. No matter how hard they work, no matter how much they give, they never really feel like they hear a thank you. And it was just nice to hear a thank you, to get affirmed for the work that you're doing every day, that you're working so hard, you're climbing that ladder, and you're not doing it for you, you're doing it for your family. You want to make your woman proud. You want your kids to be proud of you. The 3rd one, C, cookies. Let's be clear, you're dealing with a straight man. He wants those cookies, baby. So if you're not gonna feed the animal, it's gonna go feed itself someplace. So while you figure, I'm angry, I'm not gonna give up any cookies tonight, honey, you keep starving those cookies and that baby's gonna go to another bakery. So I'm just letting you know, make sure the bakery stays open, okay? It's in your best interest. I don't care what any of these, hyper modern women, it's my body, I don't have to, and it could be your body, baby. It's gonna be your body all by yourself, because if you keep holding on to that thing to try to manipulate an outcome, he will go feed himself someplace else. Okay. So I'm just letting you know, let's just keep it honest around here. Right. And then the last one is encouragement. E. There is not a man on the planet that doesn't want to have a woman who is cheering for him when nobody is watching, when nobody else is around. He wants a woman that is his biggest fan. That, baby, I see where you are today, but I believe in what you could be tomorrow. And I'm in love with both of those men. I'm in love with your current and I'm in love with your potential. And both of those have a home here. So if you want to really be there for your man, you help that man win that race. And you want to be there for your woman, don't forget those 3 Ps. But there are ways in which we can make sure we show up for each other, mind, body, and spirit, and it will change your trajectory from now till forever if you're doing this thing with God in the center of it all.
I don't even know where we are in terms of time. We're going to end the show right there. Ain't nothing else to be said. We could be 5 minutes left in the show. Just run airtime. I don't care what you say. Because that right there is what needs to be said. But what we see today clearly is that There are different perspectives. And the one thing that I say is stop believing that your partner wants what you want, because in most cases they don't, in the way that you want, right? In the order that you want. It usually doesn't work that way. And so hopefully this show and others will help people to navigate the spaces to having better relationships. We got to go, y'all. Man, Albie, you were good today. That's why we went to school and worked hard, so you could have 2 doctorates and school us today.
Tell y'all, my brothers provide for me.
Got to run. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Until next time, be blessed and be a blessing to someone else. This is Smooth 88.1 WHOV, iHeartRadio, right here, y'all. Facebook Live.